With a wide variety of terms that relate to cannabis, hemp, and CBD, I think it's really important to, right at the start, break down and define the terms that we're going to use. So, in this section, not only are we going to break down the terminology, but we're also going to talk about parts of the plant and a little bit about the manufacturing process. So let's start with the term cannabis sativa itself. Now, if you're purchasing CBD oil from the US or Europe, the CBD is likely to be derived from this strain of cannabis, Cannabis Sativa L. And we're going to break down those terms in the next slide. But when we see the terms industrial hemp, or medical cannabis, it is likely that what they are referring to is essentially the is product from the Cannabis Sativa L strain. There are other species, and we'll talk about those in a moment. But this is the key species for the cannabis industry. Let's break down Cannabis Sativa L. So the first term, cannabis, this is called the genus. So this is the umbrella term for all cannabis plants within the plant kingdom. And it is important because it is also a legal term, and we'll cover that in a later video. Sativa, now this is the species, and it was first classified in 1753. And we have the other species, indica and ruderalis, which were classified much later. And the final part, the L, stands for Linnaeus, and that's from Carl Linnaeus, and he was the first person to classify cannabis, and he is actually called the father of plant and animal classification. So essentially, cannabis, this strain of cannabis, is dedicated to him. Now, it doesn't end at Cannabis Sativa L. We have varieties within that. And I've listed 3 of the varieties. We've got Fucal, Futura, and Balaton, but there are many more. There are almost 100 approved varieties within the EU. And there's actually a database that you can go and check. You can go and see which varieties are approved in which EU markets. So let's take a quick look at that database. Here we are on the catalogue of approved EU cannabis varieties. And you can see here, down here, we have the markets and the name of the variety that's approved. And you can see here, you've got the Cannabis Sativa L here. And you can search this database for particular varieties. You can see which markets have approved which cannabis varieties. So the main takeaway here is for manufacturers and growers, if you're importing or growing cannabis in the EU, then it has to be the variety that is in this list. So you're probably wondering, why do we have so many different varieties? And I would say the main reason is probably because of market differentiation. Growers were looking to differentiate from their competitors. And so rather than growing the same variety as their competitors, they were crossbreeding and creating a new variety with a new characteristics, maybe with a new terpene characteristic. So that's why we have so many different varieties. From a THC and CBD content perspective, they're probably very similar. They should be very similar. And they might just differ in the terpene profile. So now we've covered Cannabis Sativa L and the varieties. That's the most important thing. That's what you really need to understand. Let's just touch on the other species. So the other species are Cannabis indica and Cannabis ruderalis, and they just differ in plant height. So Cannabis sativa is the tallest plant, ruderalis is the shortest, and they also differ in CBD and THC content. So that's all you really need to know about the other species of cannabis. So let's just summarize what we've talked about. We said that cannabis, that's the genus, the umbrella term for cannabis, sativa, that's the species, L for Linnaeus, and we also talked about the fact that there's a list of EU approved varieties for Cannabis Sativa L. There are some other terms that I want to cover, and that's hemp oil, CBD oil, and cannabis oil, and how they're different.